Hello, everybody. So here we are going to discuss about adaptive trial designs and have an in-depth discussion about them, about how they are different from the conventional trial designs and its statistical outcomes and analysis. So let's move on. So before I start the series, I would like to say that we are in collaboration with two YouTube channels, and we also have a podcast. So we have a collaboration between Clinical Research 360 and Clinical Aim Research with the Alpha to Omega channel. And we also have a podcast on Spotify and Stitcher. So we would request you to please subscribe because we are always going to come with fresh and interesting content and clinical research. So yeah. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about adaptive trial design and the difference between the traditional fixed sample design and adaptive trial design. So as you can see in this diagram, it very clearly says that in a traditional fixed sample design, you have the design and the conduct, and then you analyze the data. So the design, it's design, of course, the clinical drug design is completed before the conduct of the trial. And then the data out of the trial is analyzed. Now, there are situations where that trial is not appropriate, and which is where we talk about the adaptive trial design. So as you can see in this diagram here, you design the drug, you design the clinical trial, then you conduct it. Now, during your conducting phase, you review the data and then you adapt it according to the data acquired, and then you analyze the data. Now, in certain cases, that's the adaptive trial is beneficial, and clinical research in general is moving towards an adaptive trial design because it allows more space for flexibility, and in many times it saves a lot of cost and other resources. But in some cases, even though adaptive trial is being used for the future, it was used for this COVID trial, it's not appropriate. And there are reasons for that, because sometimes a traditional fixed sample design is good because you want to test a drug, the kind of uncertainties it has because it has enough of prior data, and you just want to get on with it, conduct the trial and analyze the drug. And this is often conducted where the drug is, say, it's a traditional molecule which you're adapting, or the formulation is already known. So in that case, we don't need to conduct an adaptive trial design because we know the outcomes that we're going to get, and we're also well aware of the side effects. We just want confirmation. But in the circumstances where we are testing a new trial molecule, where we're testing a new drug molecule, and adaptive trial is often beneficial. So let us move on to understand what are the statistical interpretation, because that often is one of the most difficult parts of statistical design. And the reason that adaptive trials are more tricky to analyze because of rather than traditional trials are because, well, it is there is a tendency to have bias in this trial, and the reason is because we are consistently adapting certain endpoints, and we may not understand which one is the better endpoint because we are doing multiple comparisons. Now, what do we mean by multiple comparisons? That because as we looked in the previous slide, we are reviewing the trial immediately after one cohort has been conducted or one patient group has been analyzed, and we're looking at the doses and we're looking at different things. So at that time, it can be really tricky to understand which outcome is better, especially when the outcomes are unknown. So here at this point, statistically speaking and also logically speaking, it's very possible for there to be a certain number of bias to this number. And also in statistics, the easier way to analyze data is when data is more uniform. So by that I mean when we are analyzing uh, statistical data, we prefer it if it is in one group, if it's sorted, if it's clean, and we don't have to compare two groups which are completely different, because as the basic mathematical rule is that like should be compared with like, apples should be compared with apples, and you can, it's not easy, but you can compare apples with oranges, but it can give you a very confusing outcome. So this is essentially what's happening with adaptive trial design. So statistical care has to be taken in different ways of calibrating the different kind of statistical significance, the confidence intervals, and also the errors and accuracy. Now, I want to talk a little bit about confidence intervals. And so confidence interval could be because we are comparing different groups. So confidence interval will be taking in consideration the standard error or the standard deviation of the mean. And it will be looking at the standard deviation of the different groups and seeing how much the variation between them is. So a good, well, rather the standardized confidence interval that we take is 95%. That means 95, only there should be only 5% deviation in the trials that we have conducted, in the standard deviation of the trials that we have conducted. And this can be very difficult because we are doing multiple comparisons. So here, oftentimes a well-designed statistical trial and also consulting expert statisticians and using simulation to explore the average coverage might be much more beneficial. And we have discussed simulation and virtual trials in our previous video. If you have not checked that out, so please check that out to understand what I'm talking about. So here we look at the confidence intervals and also the ever most significant but controversial p-values, because we need them to, we would like the p-values to coincide in a way that it's the ideal deviation should not be more than 0.05%, because it is said that in general, for each particular statistical group, the lower the p-value, the better the result. That means, to put it simply, that it resembles close to uniformity. However, it can be, if the p-value is perfect, then that also can be tricky for a person when you have to avoid bias. So with all these considerations, it is often better to really have to have modeling and simulation integrated along with the statistical design and expert statistician. And after we are done calculating the results of the data that we get at each stage, we should also make sure we recalibrate them and understand what the standard error is and what the accuracy is, because that can also give us a lot of information about whether the data has been whether there's been sort of whether there's been any sort of tampering with data. And also we can understand that whether the data has been analyzed correctly, and also the standard errors can give us an better understanding of the kind of deviations that we expect to get. So this is, in short, the way to interpret the adaptive trial statistically. And
So Aditya, I just wanted to ask that what could be the advantages of such trial going into the future?
Well, it is an advantage in terms of, as I said, new drug development. and the fact that we don't have a rigid fixed design, because once we have a rigid fixed design, that you can often like lose a lot of aspects of the design or lose a lot of money, while because if supposing we are designing a trial and that goes till end phase, and that's followed a very rigid kind of structure, and in the end, I mean, you find out that there may be some other problems with the drug, or you have not tested it adequately. At that time you have spent a lot of money not analyzing the different aspects of the trial. But if one has taken adaptive trial design, not only are you giving more way for for interpreting the trial in different kind of aspects, but you're also giving kind of a little moment to kind of review what data you're getting and how you can change the trial design if there are some changes required. And as you know, this at this time for the COVID vaccine, we were testing a new drug. So having a traditional design would have not benefited it. So
Yeah.
here
So
on, we it is a pattern to follow this kind of adaptive trial design, as I said, as I mentioned, with new drugs, but not necessarily that it may be beneficial for traditional drugs or that drugs that have already been well tested.
yeah.
And yeah, these are the different references that I use for adaptive trial design. And yeah, I mean, with this, I would like to announce the end of this season, but we are coming up with a new season where we're going to discuss different aspects, and we would like to get fresh content. So thank you for staying with us till now, and we hope that you will stay with us with the next season as well, because we want to go more in detail. We want to go we want to talk about different topics within clinical research and also parallel industries that may be of interest. So that's going to be coming soon. So Saurabh, do you have anything to say about our next season?
So, the season one, which we started, essentially started from what exactly a clinical trial is to now we have ended it with all the type of design which goes into it, the emergency user approval, the use of machine learning and AI into the trial models, and how the clinical research of the future can be and how medicine can be revolutionized. I'm really looking for coming up with season two, where we move on to more deeper aspects of clinical research and
Yeah,
statistics, and know what we can more contribute uh,
yeah, yeah,
with this
yeah.
effort.
Because essentially this season was a lot of touching on the basics and finding our direction within this kind of series that we have. But now that we have found that direction, we really are excited to bring a lot of the new content, for it to be more in detail, for it to touch certain aspects that we felt that we didn't touch adequately in this season, or that deserves more coverage, because there is a lot of information out there which people might benefit from it in being in video form, or like being as a podcast, because there are different type of people, that like some people like reading, some people like listening to podcasts and watching videos. So we're really excited to be part of that change and part of that revolution.
So yeah, so make sure you subscribe to us on different platforms and stay tuned. We will soon come up with season two and contribute to your knowledge base. Thank you for joining with us, and we are really happy to have this particular season one on an end with a happier note. Thank you, Aditi, for joining us from Sweden. You've been very helpful and informative throughout the season.
Yeah, thank you for, I mean, it's just been wonderful collaborating with your channel, and I've learned a lot, and I'm really looking forward to us having a future collaboration in the next season.
Thank you.